What would you do if you found out your partner was hiding a life you never knew? This is my journey, a story of deception, heartbreak, and the strength to move on. Join me to uncover the shocking truth and see how one final encounter changed everything. This is a true story, but the names of the characters have been changed. My name is David, 28 years old, born and raised in Seattle. Seattle is known for its endless rain and moody skies, and I suppose some of that temperament has rubbed off on me. I'm a bit reserved, with a reflective nature. I work in finance, a stable job that keeps me comfortable, though at times it's demanding. Friends joke that I'm a planner, someone who needs things organized and under control to feel at ease. I guess there's truth in that. I've always liked stability, the quiet, steady side of life, with few major shifts or surprises. Outside of work, I have a simple routine. I enjoy reading, taking walks on my own, and savoring quiet moments. To me, a perfect evening is sitting by my apartment window, with a coffee and a good book, listening to the city hum quietly outside. I'm not a fan of loud places or big parties, but I'm lucky to have two friends who have been with me since college, Alex and Sarah. Every Friday night, the three of us meet up at a small bar in Ballard, unwinding and catching up after a busy week. Alex is upbeat and outgoing, while Sarah is intellectual and funny, always able to spark a laugh. They know me well, and they respect the space I need. In many ways, they're the only people I've fully opened up to. Occasionally, I've wondered if my life is too calm, too predictable. But truthfully, I'm happy with it. I'm not one to fall in love easily or get swept off my feet. For me, a real relationship has to be built on something deep. Trust, sincerity, and a sense of security. Maybe that's why I've never felt compelled to settle down with anyone, not until a spring night in early 2020 when Alex introduced me to Chloe. That night, we were at our usual bar when Alex brought in Chloe, a friend he'd recently met at an event. As soon as Chloe walked in, she lit up the room. She had a bright smile and expressive eyes that sparkled with energy and warmth. Chloe exuded confidence and optimism, something rare to find. I remember talking to her that night, expecting just a brief chat, but our conversation flowed so naturally. We talked about work, shared interests, and even random things that just came up. By the end of the night, after hours of talking, I asked for her number, hoping to see her again. Our first few dates were easy and fun. We explored little cafes and restaurants around the city. Chloe had a lively, witty personality and was always ready to tell a story. She talked about her travels and how she once went stargazing alone in Montana, only to almost get lost in the wilderness. Her stories, her laughter, it all felt new and refreshing, like a side of life I hadn't experienced before. Things progressed naturally between us. From quick meetups, we began spending more time together, going for evening walks around Lake Washington, or just wandering the rainy streets of Seattle with no particular destination. By fall, about 6 months into our relationship, Chloe suggested we move in together. I didn't hesitate to agree. She brought her things over, adding little touches to my place, a few potted succulents, her favorite set of coffee mugs, making my once minimal apartment feel cozy and full of life. Over time, we developed a routine of our own. Saturday mornings spent walking through Pike Place Market, trying new foods at small spots around the city, or simply having coffee at home on rainy Sunday mornings. Seattle's constant rain felt a little lighter with Chloe around, as if she brightened even the grayest days. She made me think of settling down for the first time, envisioning a future together. With Chloe, I began to want a small, stable life, a home, a family, and a lasting commitment to the woman who'd brought so much warmth and color into my world. Those first days living with Chloe were truly filled with laughter and happiness. I had never experienced waking up each morning beside someone I genuinely cared about, starting a new day together. It felt both new and wonderfully comforting. Chloe was usually the first to wake up. She'd quietly head to the kitchen to make a pot of hot coffee, leaving a cup by my bedside with a little note that read something playful like, "The morning starts with coffee. You can't say no." I couldn't help but smile every time. Chloe had a way of making every morning feel warm and inviting. She had this habit of bringing extra life and fun into everything, even the simplest things. I remember one time she decided to have a special dinner at home. We both cooked together, and Chloe loved teasing me about how I'd take chopping vegetables too seriously and check the oven temperature repeatedly. Every now and then, she'd secretly add a pinch more spice when I wasn't looking. And if the dish tasted a little off, she'd burst out laughing, admitting to her little prank. Moments like those turned the kitchen into a lively, warm place, and I felt more relaxed than ever before. We also spent a lot of time decorating the apartment, transforming it into a space that felt like ours. Chloe had a passion for plants, so almost every week she'd bring home a new one to place around the living room. Every time I'd come home, I'd find a new cactus or a small succulent by the window. Chloe also loved to draw, and she'd sometimes put up little sketches of Seattle that she'd made in her spare time, turning the apartment into a bright, creative space. I'd always been organized, maybe even a bit too structured, but with Chloe around, I found joy in living in this space. A place that was both orderly and spontaneous, just like her. Saturday nights became our little tradition. We'd pick a random movie on Netflix, usually a comedy or something neither of us had seen. Chloe would make a huge bowl of popcorn, enough for us to snack on for the entire movie. Sometimes, if the movie turned out to be terrible, we'd end up laughing hysterically at the scenes, Chloe leaning her head on my shoulder, joking that we could become movie critics, with our knack for picking bad films. Sunday mornings were also something special. Instead of rushing into the day, we'd linger in bed, talking about everything and nothing at all. Chloe loved teasing me about my overly careful coffee-making habits, always insisting that her French press was better than my pour-over. She'd laugh, saying I was too meticulous, and I'd just chuckle back, knowing she didn't really mind. Our small debates always ended in laughter, usually with me letting her make the coffee, just to see that satisfied smile on her face. We'd sit by the window, sipping coffee and watching the rain fall, chatting about our plans for the week ahead. The rainy mornings in Seattle, which used to feel gray and dull, now felt comforting with Chloe beside me. Chloe was also full of little surprises. Sometimes she'd leave notes around the house, suggesting a new cafe she wanted to try, or inviting me to a concert she thought we'd both enjoy. These notes, though simple, always lifted my spirits and kept me looking forward to each day. She made sure our life together never became routine, and because of that, I felt like I was discovering a more colorful, exciting world that I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Gradually, I realized that I didn't just enjoy living with Chloe. I cherished every moment with her, every little surprise, and the way she turned simple things into lasting memories. She made me feel like I wasn't the same serious, overly planned person I had always been. Life with Chloe wasn't perfect, but it was a mix of cherished moments and unexpected joy. A life I'd never imagined, and for the first time, didn't want to change. At first, everything between Chloe and me seemed as steady as before. We kept our familiar routines, mornings with coffee, evenings picking a movie together. But then, slowly, I started noticing subtle changes in Chloe, small shifts that felt like warning signs I couldn't ignore. At first, Chloe only came home a little later than usual, saying work had been busy. I didn't think much of it. Everyone has demanding days. But soon, her late nights became more frequent. Chloe started saying she needed to meet colleagues or a few new friends from work, people she had never mentioned before. Initially, I thought maybe she just needed her own space and time, but as these nights out increased, a feeling of unease started growing inside me. Chloe also began putting more effort into her appearance whenever she went out. She would take extra time getting ready, picking out outfits I hadn't seen her wear before. Once I told her how beautiful she looked, but she only smiled faintly, without the same warmth she used to have. It seemed as if she was beginning to lead a life that I wasn't part of. I wondered if I was overthinking, but the changes kept happening, making it hard to ignore. Gradually, Chloe stopped sharing as much with me. She used to tell me little stories about her day, funny things about her coworkers, or interesting moments at work. Now, whenever I asked, she would just give brief answers, or quickly change the subject. I started sensing a strange distance between us, a sense of unfamiliarity that I couldn't quite understand. One Friday night, when we had planned to have dinner at her favorite restaurant, Chloe texted me at the last minute to say she had to meet up with some people from work. I felt a pang of disappointment, but tried not to show it, convincing myself that she really was just busy. However, last-minute cancellations like that began happening more frequently, and it seemed like Chloe was losing interest in the plans we made together. Another time, during one of our usual Saturday movie nights, I noticed Chloe frequently glancing at her phone. Each time she got a message, she would give me a quick, almost furtive look before replying. When I asked if everything was okay, she just gave me an uneasy smile and said it was a coworker. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that maybe I was just being paranoid, but the sense of unease only grew stronger. Even on the evenings we spent at home together, Chloe didn't seem as comfortable as before. Once, when I tried to wrap my arms around her, she seemed distant and uncomfortable, something that had never happened before. She got up, saying she had work to finish, and sat with her laptop, silent and withdrawn. Those moments of closeness we used to share became fewer and fewer, replaced by long, awkward silences I couldn't quite explain. Gradually, I couldn't deny that something had shifted in our relationship. Chloe, who had once filled my life with warmth and joy, now seemed like a stranger. Every time I saw her texting someone with a focused look, or getting ready to go out without sharing much, I wondered if I had missed something along the way. The doubts in my mind kept growing, but I had no idea what to do to bridge the gap and bring her close to me again. One morning, while organizing Chloe's closet, I stumbled upon something unusual. In the bottom drawer, tucked deep within, was a small box wrapped carefully in a soft blue cloth, as if she had hidden it deliberately. A mixture of curiosity and unease surged within me, and I decided to open the box and see what secrets it held. Inside were photos, about a dozen of them, each capturing intimate moments between Chloe and an unfamiliar man. Each photo felt like a stab to the heart. In the first photo, they stood side by side in a lush park, their faces glowing with joy, a look in Chloe's eyes I once thought was reserved for me. In another, they sat close together in a cozy cafe, their hands almost touching, the atmosphere between them unmistakably warm. Every place in the photos was familiar, places Chloe and I had been together, but now they appeared distant and foreign, laced with an unbearable sadness. What shocked me most, though, were the handwritten notes on the back of each photo. The delicate, flowing handwriting that I knew so well, Chloe's handwriting, but the words pierced me. On the back of a photo taken by the beach, she had written, "In this moment, you are my everything." The words, though simple, felt like a deeply intimate promise she had never made to me. Another photo, taken in the soft glow of sunset, read, "Only with you do I feel like my true self." Each word was like a dagger, a painful reminder that Chloe had found a happiness with this man that I had never been able to give her. Besides the photos, I also found a small bracelet in the box, a simple item yet charged with meaning. The bracelet was engraved with the words, "C&R, forever," a symbol of the relationship Chloe had hidden from me. As I held it, a bitter realization washed over me. The woman I had trusted, the one I thought I would spend my life with, had given her heart to someone else long ago. Memories of Chloe flooded my mind. Those afternoons spent wandering the city, moments on the sofa discussing our lives, work, and dreams for the future. Now, all of those moments seemed blurry and distant as I stood there, clutching the bracelet, staring at Chloe's handwritten words, words from the woman I had trusted above all else. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to demand answers to the questions racing through my mind. But instead of letting my emotions take over, I held myself back. This was not the time to lose control. I needed clarity, a way to confirm everything beyond any doubt. If I acted rashly, I might lose the chance to expose the truth thoroughly and undeniably. So I carefully closed the box, put it back in its hiding place, my heart weighed down but filled with resolve. From that moment, I knew I could no longer ignore this. I needed a plan, a way to uncover everything about this secret relationship, to make Chloe and this man face the consequences of what they had done. I would do whatever it took to bring the truth to light. From that day on, I began observing Chloe more closely, paying attention to every small detail I would have usually ignored. To avoid raising any suspicion, I made a conscious effort to be more caring and attentive than ever. Every morning, I would make her coffee, set out breakfast, and ask her about work with genuine interest, even though my mind was filled with doubts. Chloe continued going out in the evenings, but her outings grew increasingly frequent. Some nights, she would come home very late, always giving me the same reasons: meeting friends or handling some urgent work task. Once, I offered to drive her, and she hesitated for a moment before declining, saying she was meeting a female friend and didn't want to inconvenience me. Her answer seemed plausible, but her slightly awkward smile and evasive gaze left me unsettled. Another time, while cleaning the living room, I noticed a strange scent lingering on Chloe's coat, a perfume that wasn't hers and certainly wasn't mine. The fragrance was bold, like a mark left behind by someone else, someone she was trying to hide. I casually asked, "New perfume? I don't think I've smelled this one before." She flinched slightly, then quickly laughed it off, saying it was probably from a female colleague. Her explanation only heightened my suspicions, as Chloe rarely changed personal preferences without mentioning it to me. One evening, I caught her standing in a corner of the living room, whispering urgently into her phone. When she noticed me, she quickly ended the call, saying it was just a colleague needing urgent help with a work issue. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but the encounter left a gnawing feeling of mistrust deep inside. Each time a message came in, I noticed a pattern. Chloe would glance at her phone quickly, her expression tense, then either place the phone face down on the table or slip it into her purse, as though she wanted to keep everything hidden. One day, I casually asked, "Who's texting you?" Chloe forced a smile, saying it was just a friend, but her rushed manner only fueled my curiosity. Gradually, these small, unusual details began to add up, forming a hazy picture of deception that Chloe seemed intent on hiding. To gain more clarity, I decided to ask her for a small favor, sending me a document from her phone. Hoping to catch a glimpse of her recent contacts, I watched closely. Chloe hesitated briefly, then agreed, but I noticed her quickly deleting something from her inbox before handing over the phone. That hurried action did not go unnoticed, and my suspicions grew stronger. Each night Chloe went out, I felt a hollow ache growing inside me. But I reminded myself to stay patient, to continue playing the role of a loving, unsuspecting partner. If I confronted her now, I'd risk revealing my suspicions and losing the chance to uncover the full truth. Instead, I chose to remain silent, patiently waiting and observing, until everything would finally come to light. To uncover the truth about Chloe and Robert, I decided to install tracking software on Chloe's phone. As I began to read the messages between them, my worst suspicions were confirmed. But instead of stopping there, I needed to know more about the man she was involved with. Robert was a middle-aged man with an attractive appearance and a solid reputation within the company. He worked in a different department, but his projects often intersected with Chloe's, allowing them frequent opportunities to work together. He was married to Karen, a quiet elementary school teacher, and they had a young daughter. Based on photos I found on social media, Robert projected the image of a happy family man, but beneath that facade, he led a double life. Through further investigation and some insider information from his colleagues, I learned that Robert had a confident, charming persona and an undeniable allure. Rumors circulated in the company that he had been involved with other female colleagues, but he was skilled at covering his tracks, leaving no concrete evidence behind. His dangerous appeal and hidden nature were likely what drew Chloe into this affair. Day by day, I read the messages between them. In one exchange in the morning, Chloe sent Robert a sweet message, wishing him a good day and adding a heart emoji. He replied, calling her princess and saying he couldn't wait to see her that evening. Their affectionate words felt like a stab to my heart, but I kept reading, trying to stay calm. In another thread, Chloe confided in Robert about a stressful day at work. Robert comforted her with caring words, promising to make her feel better when they met that night. Chloe responded, thanking him warmly, saying that he was the only one who made her feel loved and safe. Each message felt like a dagger, knowing Chloe was giving Robert the love and trust she once shared with me. I also discovered that they arranged secret lunch dates. One morning, Robert texted Chloe, planning to meet her at a small, secluded cafe in a quiet corner of town. He told her he couldn't wait until evening, and Chloe quickly agreed, saying she felt the same way. Their covert rendezvous during work hours only added to the betrayal, as they seemed to carry on their relationship as if no one else existed. In another exchange, Robert sent Chloe the address of a hotel just outside the city, telling her he'd booked a room for the weekend. Chloe responded enthusiastically, saying she would tell me she had a work trip. The calculated secrecy in their messages cut deeply. I realized she was not just betraying me, but actively planning ways to deceive me. One of the most painful messages was when they discussed their future. Robert asked Chloe if she ever thought about leaving everything to be with him. She replied that she needed time, but that her heart had belonged to him for a long time. Those words revealed that this was no fleeting attraction. They had been nurturing this hidden love for months, maybe longer. As I delved further into Robert's personal life, I discovered more about his duplicitous nature. Behind the image of a loving husband and father, he was a thrill-seeker with a taste for forbidden relationships. Some of his colleagues hinted online that Robert was good at keeping secrets and adept at balancing his family life, career, and illicit affairs. This experience and charm must have captivated Chloe, drawing her into a relationship with him without her realizing the risks. Sitting there, reading each message, I felt both heartbroken and furious. It became clear that I couldn't confront Chloe just yet. I needed more evidence to fully expose this deception. I decided to stay calm and continue gathering information, waiting for the right moment to reveal everything so that they would have nowhere to hide. After discovering the painful truth about Chloe and Robert's affair, I couldn't keep it to myself. Robert was a married man, and I realized that his wife, Karen, deserved to know the truth about the betrayal. I searched through social media to find Karen's account. After some digging, I found her profile, where she shared photos of her family, capturing moments of happiness with their young daughter, and posting messages of love and appreciation for Robert, completely unaware of her husband's deceit. I sat for a long time before sending Karen a message. I knew that what I was about to reveal would shatter her life, but keeping it hidden felt even more cruel. In my anonymous message, I included all the proof I'd gathered: photos, messages, and details of Robert's meetings with Chloe. I wrote, "I'm sorry to send you this, but I believe you have a right to know the truth. Your husband Robert has been unfaithful. Here are the details I've collected." The wait for her response was agonizing. When Karen finally read the message, there was no immediate reply. I could imagine her shock, her pain, and the disbelief she was feeling as her world seemed to collapse in an instant. After what felt like an eternity, she replied in a short, emotional message. "This can't be true. He wouldn't do this to me." Her words showed she was clinging to a hope that it was all a misunderstanding, fighting against the betrayal that was now unfolding before her. I gently urged her to examine each piece of evidence I had provided. More silence followed, but I understood that Karen was facing an intense, internal struggle. I could picture her sitting alone, tears streaming down her face, as she read each message, studied each photo, and realized the extent of Robert's deception with Chloe. After a long pause, Karen messaged again, but her tone had changed. Her words were now resolute and determined. "Thank you for telling me the truth. I won't let them get away with this. I want to make them face the consequences of what they've done." I could sense the shift in her emotions. From a place of shock and sadness, Karen had become resolute, ready to confront the betrayal. Together, we began to plan. Rather than letting Karen confront Robert immediately, we decided to create a situation where both Robert and Chloe would have no choice but to face each other, and us, without any room to escape. We wanted them exposed, forced to confront the full weight of their actions. First, I sent Robert an anonymous message, posing as a potential business partner, and inviting him to meet for a special project. I hinted at a lucrative investment opportunity, knowing that his ambition would make him eager to accept. He responded quickly, suggesting a time and place for the meeting. Meanwhile, Karen crafted her own plan to lure Chloe. She wrote a letter by hand, posing as a secret admirer who had followed Chloe's work, and admired her from afar. Using sweet, complimentary words, Karen promised Chloe a special gift and hinted at an exclusive meeting. She wrote in a way that would intrigue Chloe and stroke her curiosity. In the letter, Karen suggested meeting at the same location and time as Robert's appointment, implying it would be a private encounter. Our plan was meticulously prepared, every detail arranged to avoid raising any suspicions. We were certain that both Robert and Chloe, with their personalities and thrill-seeking tendencies, wouldn't be able to resist the allure of these secretive invitations. On the day of the confrontation, Karen and I arrived at the cafe we had carefully chosen. I went in first, selecting a secluded corner where I could observe without drawing attention, while Karen waited outside. My heart pounded with a mixture of anger and anticipation. This was the moment when everything would come to light. Right on time, Robert entered, wearing his usual confident expression as he scanned the cafe for his business partner. He looked relaxed, unaware that he was about to face the consequences of his deceit. He sat down, glanced at his phone, and casually looked around, oblivious to the trap he was stepping into. A few minutes later, Chloe entered. She spotted Robert, and with a look of surprise, approached him slowly, her face a mix of curiosity and confusion. "Robert, you're here too?" she asked, her voice hesitant. Robert's face showed the same surprise. "You got invited here as well?" he replied, puzzled. Chloe gave a nervous laugh, trying to mask her uncertainty. "Yes, I got a letter from a secret admirer, telling me to come here for a surprise," she explained, still not quite understanding the situation. As they sat down whispering to each other, trying to make sense of their unexpected meeting, I rose from my corner and walked toward their table. When they looked up and saw me standing there, their faces instantly paled. Chloe looked terrified, while Robert stared at me, his eyes wide with shock. I held their gaze, my voice cold and unyielding. "Did you two really think you could keep this hidden forever? Sneaking around, lying behind our backs, did you even think about how this would affect us?" Robert stammered, struggling to regain his composure. "No, it's not what you think. I can explain, it's just that, Chloe quickly chimed in, her voice shaky. "Please let me explain, I didn't mean to hurt anyone, it's just, She trailed off, her words falling flat as she realized there was no excuse she could give. I cut them off, unable to hide my contempt. "Didn't mean to hurt anyone? What about the messages, the secret meetings, the promises? You both played with our trust, so spare us your empty excuses." At that moment, Karen entered. Her face was flushed with anger and heartbreak as she stared directly at Robert. Her voice was thick with emotion, yet sharp as a knife. "You think you could betray me, betray our daughter, and I'd never find out? Do you think I'm that foolish?" Robert lowered his head, stumbling over his words. "Karen, I can explain. It's not what it looks like, Without letting him finish, Karen slapped him hard across the face, the sound echoing through the cafe. "Explain? You think there's any explanation for betraying your own family?" She then turned to Chloe, her eyes filled with contempt and anger. "And you, did you ever stop to think about how this would feel for me, for our daughter, when you decided to steal my husband? Did you know he has a family, a responsibility, or did that not matter to you?" Chloe stammered, fear filling her eyes as she glanced at Karen. I didn't mean for it to go this far, I didn't think." Her voice faltered, her confidence and allure now replaced with shame and regret. Karen, unable to contain her fury, slapped Chloe as well, leaving her stunned and clutching her cheek, too shocked to respond. I looked at them both, my voice filled with a disgust I couldn't hide. "You two thought you could lie, sneak around, and never face the consequences? Trust isn't something you can just play with. It's over." Robert sat there in silence, his head down, too ashamed to meet our eyes, while Chloe looked away, tears streaming down her face, her hands trembling as she tried to compose herself. Karen and I turned and walked away without another word, leaving them both to sit there in shame and despair. We knew this would be a day they would never forget, the day their lies were laid bare, and they had to face the pain they had caused the people they once deceived and betrayed. But I wasn't finished yet. I wanted Chloe to fully understand the consequences of her betrayal, leaving no escape. That evening, I told her that we should take some time apart, that I'd be moving to another city for a few months to clear my mind and reflect on our relationship. Chloe seemed relieved, even hopeful, thinking that I might forgive her and move on from everything that had happened. In reality, I didn't go far at all. Instead of relocating to another city, I rented a small apartment nearby so I could secretly keep an eye on her. I even hired a private security firm to help install surveillance equipment around her apartment, ensuring I could monitor her every move. We placed discreet cameras in key locations: outside her front door, along the hallway leading to her apartment, and in the living room, where Chloe often spent her evenings. I also installed listening devices in the living room and bedroom to capture conversations. To complete the setup, I added tracking software on Chloe's phone, allowing me to read her messages, track calls, and monitor her location whenever she went out. During the first few days, Chloe seemed more quiet and introspective, as if she were considering everything that had happened, but soon enough, she returned to her old habits. From my hidden apartment, I observed her every move like an outsider. Chloe started going out more frequently, meticulously dressing up each time, no longer making excuses about working late or meeting friends. She began attending parties, meeting new people, and even openly flirting with other men. Day by day, I gathered undeniable evidence. I had video footage of Chloe laughing and openly flirting with strangers right outside our home. One night, I even saw her holding hands with a man as they left a restaurant together, their gaze and gestures unmistakably intimate. I took screenshots of her flirtatious messages, where she arranged dates with other men and exchanged promises that once were only meant for me. Chloe had no idea that every word, every action was being meticulously recorded and stored. Once I had everything I needed, I compiled a list of people who would receive the information: her family members, close friends, co-workers, and even her boss. I wanted everyone to see Chloe's true colors, leaving her no option but to face the judgment and disappointment from those around her. I organized the evidence carefully: intimate videos, screenshots of affectionate messages, and recorded conversations. I sent each file with an anonymous message: "This is the real Chloe you never knew." First, I sent the evidence to Chloe's family, her parents and siblings, who had always been proud of her. When they received the messages and reviewed the evidence, they were devastated and overcome with disappointment. Her mother, heartbroken and angry, called Chloe immediately. "Chloe, how do you explain what we just received? Do you know how much your actions have hurt us? We were so proud of you, and always thought you were a person of integrity." Chloe was silent, unable to find words to respond. Her father, usually a strict but loving man, spoke next, his tone cold and filled with disappointment. "Chloe, I never thought you'd do something like this. You've not only hurt the man who loved you, but have disgraced this family. You have betrayed everyone who trusted you." The harsh words from her parents struck Chloe deeply. She tried to explain, but they refused to listen. Her family members, shocked and humiliated, decided to cut off contact with her until she could fully realize the consequences of her actions. Next, I sent the evidence to Chloe's closest friends, people who had trusted and supported her. They were equally stunned, unable to believe what they were seeing. One of her closest friends called her immediately, the anger and sense of betrayal clear in her voice. "Chloe, we trusted you, thought you were someone we could confide in. But it turns out we were wrong. You lied not only to your boyfriend but to everyone who genuinely cared about you. I don't want anything to do with you anymore." Chloe tried to apologize, but one by one her friends turned away, feeling betrayed and deceived. No one wanted to continue a friendship with her, realizing that they no longer knew who she truly was. Finally, I sent the entire set of evidence to her boss at work, knowing it could have a significant impact on her career. Her boss reviewed the evidence with a mixture of confusion and disappointment. Soon after, Chloe was called into the office for a serious conversation. "Chloe, this company values integrity and professionalism. I can't accept that someone in this organization would live such a lifestyle. We'll have to seriously reconsider your position here." Chloe sat in silence, her face flushed with embarrassment. She realized she was now at risk of losing the career she had worked so hard to build. After sending everything, I sent Chloe one final message. I gave you the chance to be honest and make amends, but you chose betrayal. Now, you'll have to live with the shame and isolation for destroying the trust of the only person who truly loved you. With that message, I vanished completely from her life, leaving her to confront the consequences of her choices. Now, Chloe was left not only with a broken relationship, but a tarnished reputation. Family, friends, and colleagues had distanced themselves, leaving her isolated, to live with the regret and shame caused by her own actions. After everything was exposed, Chloe's life fell into a loneliness and despair she had never known before. Her closest relationships vanished, one by one. Her family, who had once been so proud of her, no longer wanted contact, her closest friends turned away, and the career she had built crumbled overnight. Chloe now lived in a world where the love and trust of those around her had vanished, leaving her isolated and adrift. Each day for Chloe began with a heavy emptiness. She woke up to a life without the friends or family she used to confide in. Desperate to reconnect, she tried reaching out to her family, sending messages to her mother, calling her brother, but her attempts were met with cold replies or complete silence. Her mother, who once listened to her every worry and celebrated her joy, only responded with short, emotionless messages. "You've disappointed us, Chloe." Her father, who had always protected and cherished her, refused to speak at all. Chloe's family felt hurt and betrayed on a level she hadn't anticipated. Her friends, once her most trusted companions, no longer wanted anything to do with her. Chloe had once had a close group of friends she could turn to for anything. Now, every message she sent was met with brief, distant replies, if they replied at all. Some stopped responding entirely. One by one, they all withdrew, feeling that Chloe was not the person they thought they knew. She also lost her job. Her company could not stand behind her after the revelations, and her career was suddenly over. Without an income, Chloe had to leave her old apartment and find a small, cheaper place to live. The new apartment was cramped, dark, and old, nothing like the comfortable, stylish home she once had. Gone were the little touches that used to make her space her own. All she had left now was herself, trapped in a cycle of regret, haunted by what she had done. Every morning, waking up in this empty, unfamiliar space, Chloe looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. The confident, lively woman she had once been was gone, replaced by someone weighed down with exhaustion and shame. There were no more nights out with friends, no more family dinners, no love in her life to keep her warm. Her life had become an endless routine of self-blame and loneliness. Chloe had once had so many plans for the future. She had dreamed of building a happy family, advancing in her career, maybe even opening a small business one day. But those plans now seemed impossible. She spent most days in silence, staring at her surroundings, remembering the happy days she had lost, regretting the choices she had made. She couldn't imagine making plans for the future, unable to see a way forward, or imagine a life with people who would accept her again. As for me, after leaving Seattle, I took with me both the painful and bittersweet memories of a love that had once been everything to me. Seattle, a city I once thought would be my last stop, where I had dreamed of building a life with Chloe, had become a place filled with reminders of heartbreak. Every street, every cafe, every corner that once held memories of us, now only brought back pain. I knew I had to leave to truly let go and find peace within myself. After leaving Seattle, I moved to a new city where no one knew my past. I started from scratch, looking for new things to appreciate, finding joy in life's simple pleasures. I slowly began to trust in myself again, opening up to the people around me. Though memories of Chloe would occasionally come to mind, they no longer brought pain. Instead, I saw them as lessons, scars left behind by a time that taught me the value of trust and the lessons that life sometimes teaches in the hardest ways. I began planning my future, this time focused on my own growth and happiness. Rather than searching for stability with another person, I decided to pursue the goals I had once set aside. I began writing, recording my experiences and emotions as I worked through the pain and moved forward. Writing became a source of healing, each page a small step toward reclaiming myself. Perhaps someday I'll meet someone who's worthy of sharing my life, but for now, I am ready to move on. I left Seattle carrying both the pain and a newfound sense of peace. Pain, because a love that had once meant everything turned into a bitter betrayal. But peace, because I had finally let go and was ready to step into a new chapter of life, filled with hope. 1 year after we parted ways, on a crisp autumn afternoon, I unexpectedly ran into Chloe. It was a chance meeting on a crowded street in my new city. At first, I barely recognized her. The woman standing before me was no longer the Chloe I once knew. She had changed. The confident sparkle of before had softened into something calmer, more reflective. We paused, standing face to face in silent surprise. Chloe smiled, a gentle smile that was neither regret nor guilty. Instead, it was a smile of quiet acceptance. She greeted me with a calm voice, free of the old bravado I once knew. "David, it's been a long time. I never expected to see you here." I responded, feeling both awkward and surprisingly at ease. "Yeah, it's unexpected. You look different." Chloe said, "I've changed a lot. I'm definitely not who I was before." For a moment, we stood in silence, just looking at each other. Finally, Chloe suggested we go to a nearby cafe to catch up. I agreed, and we found a quiet corner in the cafe, where the warm light cast a peaceful glow, giving us a sense of privacy but without tension. The atmosphere between us felt calm, as if the bitterness from the past had faded. Chloe looked down at her coffee as if gathering her thoughts, and then looked up at me, her gaze sincere. "David, I've thought a lot about you this past year, about everything I did. I can't justify it. I know I hurt you deeply, and I just want to say I'm truly sorry. I know that won't fix anything, but I want you to know I've changed." I listened, feeling each word resonate with a genuine regret. "Chloe, there was a time when I was so angry at you, so disappointed. But over time, I realized I needed to let go of the past to find peace for myself. I don't feel any bitterness anymore." Chloe nodded, her eyes glistening, though she didn't appear weak. Her tone was calm as she continued. "After losing everything, I knew I had to change. I had no family to turn to, my friends distanced themselves, and I had to start over. I moved to a new city, took a simple job, and lived in a small apartment, and in that solitude, I slowly began to understand the value of things I once took for granted." Chloe went on to share how she had sought therapy to confront the pain and responsibility of her mistakes. She spent months examining why she had made those choices. The loneliness and regret allowed her to see herself clearly, and she began to understand the things she had overlooked. She looked at me with genuine honesty as she spoke. "You know, I used to think I needed more, that I'd only be happy if I had everything I thought I wanted. But in the end, I only lost myself. I've realized now that sometimes what you already have is enough, and I gave up so much just to learn that lesson." I sighed, sensing the maturity and change in her. She was no longer the woman I had once loved, or the person who had caused me so much pain. Standing before me was someone who had endured her own hardships and found a way to grow from her mistakes. I've learned a lot from this too. Some things, once broken, can never go back to how they were. But I think we're both stronger now because of it. Chloe nodded, speaking with sincerity. "David, I know you don't have to forgive me, and I don't expect you to. But I want you to know how grateful I am for the time we had together. Those days we shared were some of the best of my life, even if I ruined them." We talked for a while longer, sharing what life had been like for each of us over the past year. Chloe explained that she no longer looked for anything flashy or superficial, but was focused on leading a simple, honest life. She had started reading, practicing yoga, and even volunteering to help others. Through her experiences, she had found a peace she'd never known before. "Now, all I want is to live with peace. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, and I don't want anything grand anymore. I know I've lost so much, and now I just want to be true to myself." Listening to Chloe, I felt a strange lightness within myself. Perhaps we both needed this time to grow, to learn how to forgive ourselves and each other. After a while, we stood up, saying goodbye with a sense of peace and understanding. Before parting, Chloe looked back at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, David. Thank you for being part of my life and for listening to me today. I hope you find happiness in your new life." I smiled, feeling an unexpected relief. "Thank you too, Chloe. We had some beautiful memories together, and I'll always cherish that. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. We walked away in opposite directions, but this time, there was no heaviness or pain. I felt lighter, knowing that we had both grown from our past, and that, although our paths no longer crossed, we each had found our way to move forward. On the way home, I thought back on our conversation, feeling grateful for the journey. Though there had been pain, it was those very hardships that allowed me to grow stronger and find peace in my new life. Chloe had changed, and so had I. We had both learned to live again, carrying with us the lessons of the past and a sense of gratitude for the paths we had taken.